Sometimes paintings are just pretty because they go with your furnishings in your house, and sometimes a painting just strikes you on a emotional chord or whatever. So I think it's nice to have a variety of things that kind of tell your story.
It really captures like the spirit of the area that it's obviously been.
It feels very vivid to me.
We're always kind of intimidated by the things that scare us or the unknown. Most people, when they meet me, they're like, "Well, your stuff's so dark and creepy, but you're not creepy at all." And I'm like, "Well, thanks. That's a good thing." A lot of people are like, "Is this the same artist?" They don't quite see it. For me, it's always been something I didn't question. I always understood what that was. It was just me taking my experiences and then putting them out there. For me, she's beautiful with all the imperfections. So I really love this piece. It's interesting when people look at this piece, some people see a landscape. Art to me is basically a way of living for me. It's something that I have to do every day. It's not something that I just turn off and turn back on. It's just whether I'm teaching it or producing my own work or looking at work, or I'm just constantly thinking about it in bed at night, and it's just all these ideas run through your head of stuff you want to do, you got to do, you need to do for me. And so it's always a constant battle of time management and how to make all that work. I really started to develop my own voice, something I'd already been working on since I was a child, always with the lines, and that kind of carrying that throughout. By creating those lines and that texture over top of, it almost created like this look through old film, old photographs where they show the characteristics of time or age. So by doing that, it was kind of like doing that to a traditional scene that we see every day, but it's also documenting that history. And maybe it's personal experiences that get documented, so each line could represent a moment in time where it's now, but yeah, it's it could have been 100 years ago.
It gives you an idea like of a throwback of like what it would be like. I don't know, pictures of like how it was back then, back when the old steamships were running and stuff.
I like to take old photos of riverboats and then kind of make them my own and then put them in kind of more of a modern scene, but with the full moon. You don't see a lot of people working with night, and then also the early morning light as well.
I've seen a lot of artwork in my time, but his just, I guess because it's home, it makes you feel proud. To live here.
It's one of those things that you can't turn off. I mean, just like a runner, they have to run, they just got to get that, the adrenaline that they get from doing that. And it's something like I feel like, I was just born with. Nobody in my family does art. Nobody's ever really talked about it much. It was just blue collar working, class family. My parents did a great job being really accepting of that, which I think if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have ended up being an artist. Fortunate enough, I have a gallery here in Madison that I run with my family. I do the art part of it, my mom does the cafe and food part of it, and then my dad is just really good with hands-on. Gallery 115 was an idea. It was my mother. She was, she had always said, "Oh, it'd be so neat to have like a little, kind of a cafe or like a diner style." She's always been really good at cooking. Traveling abroad, going different places, and seeing these little cafes and just, the feel of those older cafes, and just thinking about to different artists throughout time. You have them meeting in different cafes and things like that in Europe. It's almost like you're stepping into one of my paintings and you're stepping back in time in old Madison. So we knocked all the plaster, sealed the brick, and then with this I was able to kind of recreate Toulouse-Lautrec paintings. I love his work, especially what he was doing with the Moulin Rouge posters. It kind of creates some atmosphere for somebody that may be eating alone that day. They have some Lautrec figures they can eat with. So this is a self-portrait I had done, and I had covered it all in charcoal, came back with my kneaded eraser, and then worked the figure back into it. For me, it's asking the viewer, are you looking at me or am I looking at you? That's just something that, I don't know, it just came out. And I just think it just adds another level to who I am and what I do. And it shows, oh, there is more than what meets the eye on the surface. So I kind of like that aspect of it. So it's been coined as creepy cool. And I try to get people to see that in the gallery when they come in, that, you know, even the sculpture works with the landscape paintings. It kind of carries the same voice, though one's a little darker, one's a little brighter, or what have you. It still has the same line, the same value, the same textures, kind of playing off of each other. Just call it figurehead. I like how it's kind of just floating there and letting the viewer kind of decide what the scenario or what the narrative is.
I think it's pretty mysterious. Like, he doesn't have any, like, an expression for sure. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's just
Kind of like draws your mind to think like what the artist was thinking when he drew
actually
it. Like,
drew it. Yeah.
yeah, like what really lies behind that painting.
There's a certain person, you know, for the figurative pieces that, you know, to relate to that. And some people, they automatically get it. And some people like love the figurative stuff and they hate the landscape, the Madison scenes. They're just like, I don't know.
I personally love surrealism, so I mean, it just evokes a lot of emotion, and not necessarily symbolism or anything, just emotion. It's very raw.
And then you have people that come in, they love the landscapes and they don't understand. They just think it's weird.
Those are different. Not really my style of art. It would be neat to have a room, you know, just with that kind of images in it.
They want to shield their kids' eyes sometimes. And then you have people that love both, like myself, who just see it as just this transition in time. This horse, he's been pasteurizing way too long. He's been stuck in one place, and so his legs are getting taller. Though he can't move, at least he's growing. I have no art hanging on my walls at home. I don't have any of my paintings hanging on the walls. I don't really collect art. It's always just been something I've done. Francis Bacon and Alberto Giacometti, I feel like I should have been, you know, in that time period of those artists, you know, that 1920s through the 40s, that golden, you know, that 20 years span right there, where you're kind of coming out of post-impressionism. Madison is great. It's right between Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis. I mean, Nashville's not that far, Chicago's not that far. So there's all these larger cities where you can start thinking about Madison as this stage with the historic aspect of it and the arts and cultural aspect that's always been here. But now on that stage, we need to build a performance, and that's what we're trying to do, I think, with the Arts Here Now movement, and just in general, people that are, you know, transplants moving into Madison are starting to see this really vibrant culture starting to happen. Still old, it's still, you know, it still has that old feel, but it's done in a new way.
It's a very distinct feeling of the, you know, darkness in a, for as enchanting as a small town can be, there is still always darkness in it, I feel like. And it captures both the beauty and even a little bit of the sadness of it too.
This could almost become like a playground for the arts. And it's kind of like one of those things, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. All of the natural beauty that's around, and then to have artists here to kind of enhance that with more modern sculpture or, you know, things like that, I think could really set us apart from any other community, even further than we are already.